Okay. Yesterday, we learned about a machlokes Shmuel and Ravina, and I don't think I was accurate in how I explained the machlokes. So I just want to briefly review it and make sure that we have it clear. Reb Shimon learned from Behemtecha. I'm not sure. It was turned upside. It was turned backwards. So I didn't. Reb Shimon learns from Behemtecha. V'loi behemas b'charu meiser. The Gemara wants to know what exactly is it referring to. So Ravina said it's referring to Baal Mum. Now the question is, if it's a Bechor Meiser Baal Mum, then it's considered shlala. Why is it considered shlala? Because without any type of pidyon, it automatically belongs to either the Bailim if it's Meiser or the Kohen if it's Bechor. But there's no kedusha on it. So oy bazoi, why is it that you don't burn it? The teretz is because there's a special limud of behemtecha, and that is mi shenechal b'toris behemtecha yotzu elu she'eina cholim b'toris behemtecha elo b'toris bechor u'maiser the shlal shamayim ninu. The only type of behema that we would say would get destroyed because it's considered shlala is if we would just call it behemtecha. But this has what we call a shem lovely. It's your behema of meiser. It's your behema of bechor. And the Torah says behemtecha to exclude a behema of meiser and the behema of bechor to exclude that from being destroyed in the nidachas. So it's a special limit for that. But a bechor and meiser, which did not have a mum, that's mamish lal shamayim. That's mamish lal shamayim. So if it's a bechor and meiser that didn't have a mum, it's shlal shamayim. It's a carbon. It's brought on the mizbeach. So for sure, it's not included in shlala. But even if it has a mum, for all practical purposes, it's like regular chulin. So you might consider that it's shlala kamash malon, since it's not called your meat. It's called your meat of bechor, your meat of meiser. We consider that shlal shamayim, and behemtecha tells us that that's not destroyed in the nidachas. That was Ravina's approach. Shmuel's approach was the opposite. Shmuel says anything that does not need pidyon, for instance, bechor and meiser, if it got a mum, it doesn't need pidyon. Every other carbon, even if it had a mum, it needs pidyon. Bechor and meiser are unique, that if it has a mum, it goes l'chulin automatically, it does not need pidyon. Shmuel holds the fact that it goes l'chulin without any pidyon in the event that it had a mum is a litmus test, and it shows that even when it was a tam before it had a mum, we also consider it mum and bailim. We also consider it chulin, and therefore, I would have thought that this is not called shlal shamayim because of the litmus test. Because if it had a mum, there's no pidyon required, and therefore I need a pasuk of behemtecha to tell me that dafka your behema in ganzen, but not your behema that's bechor and meiser, even though it doesn't have a mum. What about bechor that has a mum? Bechor that has a mum is shalala, and in fact you would destroy it. So I said yesterday that I don't think there's enough kamina la'alocha between Ravina and Shmuel, but it's not true because according to Shmuel, if it's a bechor meiser that had a mum, it's chulun and shalala, and it would be destroyed in the ir nidachas. But according to Ravina, it would not, because Yotzu elu she'eina cholin b'taris behemtecha elo b'taris bechor u'meiser the shalal shamayim. Okay, so that clarifies that machlokes. Now we are going to go to the next tomorrow, which is where we sort of left off yesterday. So Amar B'chista lo shanu. It says in the Mishnah that truma, if there's truma found in the er nidachas, we let it rot. So Amar B'chista lo shanu elo truma b'yad Yisrael. If the truma is in the hand of a Yisrael, now it's not really his, he has to give it to a Kohen. So therefore we say that since it's biyad Yisrael, but he doesn't really own it, it really could belong to a Kohen who's not part of this ir nidachas, because we don't know who he's going to give it to. Therefore, we don't destroy it, you just let it rot. Avol truma biyad Kohen. But what if the Kohen had already received the truma, meaning now it's his in Gansen, kivin de mamoinehu, since it's his mom, and if he's part of an ir nidachas, tisarif, it wouldn't be left to rot. Rather, you burn it outright because it's the Kohen's money, and the Kohen lives in the Erni Dachas. Mosav Rabbi Yosef, Frek Rabbi Yosef Akacha, Ma'aser Sheni B'Kisvei HaKodesh, which is the next case in the Mishnah. Yigonzu, you can't destroy them, you bury them. Frek the Gemara, V'Ma'aser Sheni B'Yad Yisrael is Ketruma B'Yad Kohen Nami, the Ketani Yigonzu. What it should say is destroy it. It gets burnt with the other items of the Erni Dachas. Why Yigonzu? Ella, Itmar, Hachi Itmar. This is what you'll have to say Pshat in Yerkuvu by Truma. Amar B'Chista, Lo Yishonu Elo Truma B'Yad Kohen. You know where you say Yerkuvu? That's if it's Truma B'Yad Kohen, meaning it has to be destroyed, but it's not covered for Truma to destroy it, so therefore you leave it until it rots. Aval Truma B'Yad Yisrael. But if the Truma is B'Yad Yisrael, where it doesn't even belong to him, because he just has typhus and no of which Kohen he's going to give it to, then you don't destroy it at all. Rather, Tinasein LeKohen Shabir Ercheres. The Yisrael will give this Truma to a Kohen that's not part of the Erni Dachas, and it doesn't get destroyed at all. So that's what Rav Chisda said. Truma B'Yad Kohen does have to get destroyed, but it's not Bakovidik for Truma to outright destroy it and burn it. So therefore, you let it rot. Zok Tehele V'Gemara. Tanan Hasan. Isa Shal Ma'aser Sheni. What if you had a dough of Ma'aser Sheni? Petura Min Achala, it would be potter from Chala, Diver Reb Meir. Why is it potter from Chala? Zok the Gemara. Let's see Rashi. No, Rashi doesn't comment on over here. Okay, so it's potter from Chala. Why is it potter from Chala? Because it's Ma'aser Sheni Mamon Gavoyahu. Okay, the Gemara will explain. The Chacham hold its chayim. Amar Rab Chisda. So Rab Chisda commented. Amar Rab Chisda, the Ma'aser Sheni B'Yerushalayim. It's speaking. I'm sorry. So let me take a step back. So if Isa Shal Ma'aser Sheni is Peturim Nachala Divrei Meir V'Chamar Mechayvin. So you see that Ma'aser Sheni. You see Ma'aser Sheni is not your moment. If it's potter from Chala, it's a mamish, not your moment. That's why it's potter from Chala, because Chala is a chiv on harisa seichem, on your dough. It's not your dough. You're potter from Chala. The chum are mechayiv. So kum techois, we have a machlokes here if Ma'aser Sheni is yours or if it's not yours, which means that what Rav Chisda said earlier will be totally in a machlokes, because Rav Chisda said that Truma B'Yad Kohen gets destroyed, and Ma'aser Sheni is Yigonzu. If Ma'aser Sheni is Yigonzu, why is it that? It must be because we consider it shlola, and therefore it has to get destroyed. But instead you bury it. So it's not awesome. Isha by Sheni P'tur Menachalo Divrei Meir Lachamer Mechayvin, which would tell us it's actually a litmus test as to whether or not it belongs to yours or not. So Amar Chisda Machlokes b'Ma'aser Sheni B'Yerushalayim. This whole machlokes of whether or not it's part of Chala or Chayav Chala is Ma'aser Sheni in Yerushalayim. Reb Meir Savar Ma'aser Sheni Mamon Gavoyahu. Reb Meir holds Ma'aser Sheni is Mamon Gavoya. Rabbanan Savri Mamon Hedjid. And the Rabbanan holds it's Mamon Hedjid, therefore you're Chayav and Chala. Aval B'Gvulim. But what if you're not in Yerushalayim? Meaning you cannot eat this. You cannot eat it at all. You're not allowed to eat Ma'aser Sheni out of Yerushalayim. Aval B'Gvulim Divrei Akal Potter. That for sure belongs to the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's Mamon Gavoya. It's not yours, and therefore you're pot from Chala. Let's have a look at Rashi. Aval B'Gvulim she'ein la heter achila. Ma'aser Sheni B'Gvulim, you can't eat it. All you could do is biptir. You could redeem it. If you redeem it, then you can eat it, but you can't eat it outright. So therefore, Divrei Akoil Petur Min Achala. Everybody holds that Ma'aser Sheni out of Yerushalayim will be pot from Chala. The Mamon Gavoyahu. It's a Mamon Gavoya. Lish Nachrina. Aval B'Gvulim the ein la heter achila b'shas chiyuv Chala. But by Gvulim, where you can't eat it at all right now, that it's sitting out of Yerushalayim, where the chiyuv Chala wants to be chal now, when it becomes a dough, then b'shas gilgal isa. Therefore, like Karina Bay Reishis Arisoi Seichem. The chiyuv of taking challah from your dough is not challah over here, because this right now is not your dough, because you don't have a right to eat it. Even if you reported it later, that challah is not chulin, it's going to be potter forever, because the time where the chiyuv challah was triggered when you started making it into a dough, at that point it was not your mammon, it was mammon ma'aser sheni that could not have been eaten. Zok to Gemara. Amar Chista Machlekes b'ma'aser sheni b'Yerushalayim. Rav Meir said b'ma'aser sheni mammon gavayahu. Rav Meir holds ma'aser sheni is mammon gavayahu. For Rabbanan tzavri mammon heditu, and Rabbanan holds it's mammon hedit. But if it's begvulin, divrei akoyel potter, everybody holds it's not your mammon. Masav Rabbi Yosef. So Rabbi Yosef had a kasha. Ma'aser sheni v'kisvei hakodesh yigonzu. So it's going back to our Mishnah. So let's analyze this. B'may askin. Ilema b'Yerushalayim. If our Mishnah is speaking about Ma'aser sheni in Yerushalayim, and it's telling us that even Ma'aser sheni in Yerushalayim, if it's an ir nidachas, is not yours, and therefore it has to be destroyed to Yigonzu, it can't be this happened in Yerushalayim. Mi have ir nidachas. Yerushalayim cannot become an ir nidachas. So the Mishnah that's talking about Ma'aser sheni Yigonzu can't be speaking that it's in Yerushalayim, because Yerushalayim cannot become an ir nidachas. Vatani we learned Asar Dvarim Nermu Yerushalayim. There's 10 halachas was said in reference to Yerushalayim. V'zu achas mahen that eina nasas ir hanidachas. So therefore, you have to say the case of the Mishnah is speaking b'ir acheres. V'elo b'ir acheres, it's speaking in a different city. V'askuhu ligavo, and it was brought into Yerushalayim. Because we have to understand something. If it's not in Yerushalayim, if it's begvulin, it's divrei akal poter, it's mammon shemayim, and therefore it shouldn't be shalala, and therefore it for sure shouldn't be subject to the destruction of an ir nidachas. So the question is, the only time you could say that it's shalala, it's your item, and it's not mammon gavaya, is only in Yerushalayim, right? And even then, as the Brisa points out, that's only according to the Chachamim in Yerushalayim. It's not mammon gavaya, and therefore it would be subject to the Surim of of the ir nidachas. But the problem over here is it couldn't have come from Yerushalayim, and the ir nidachas could not have been Yerushalayim because the ir nidachas is not Yerushalayim. So it must be the elo b'ir acheres. The ir nidachas is a different city, not in Yerushalayim. Vasku legava, and it was taken to Yerushalayim, and therefore it's considered shlala because in Yerushalayim you're allowed to eat it. But for the Gemara, once it was taken into Yerushalayim, you wouldn't have to take it out to destroy it because hakal tu mechitzos. The loch is once something is within the walls, once Ma'aser sheni is within the walls of Yerushalayim, you're no longer allowed to remove it from Yerushalayim. So this anyway couldn't be destroyed with the shalal of the ir nidachas, because we know there's a rule that you have to be able to gather it in to the ir nidachas. It has to be the kavtua. You have to gather in all of the shalal of the ir nidachas and bring it in. So therefore we said if a Russia has product in another city, as long as within a day you can get it into that city, into the city of the ir nidachas, you'll burn it with it. But here you couldn't, because once it's in Yerushalayim, you can't take it back out. Elolav bigvulin. So it has to be speaking bigvulin. That means Yerushalayim is not involved here. You have Ma'aser sheni, and this Ma'aser sheni is in a different city, not in Yerushalayim, where everybody considers, according to Rav Chisda, everyone considers it mammon gavaya. Yet the chatana yignazu, it says you have to bury it. Why? Why shouldn't it be in Gantz and Mutter? Because it's a mammon gavaya, because you can't eat it. The same way Rav Chisda said it wouldn't become challah because it's not your arisoi seichem. Well, it's not shalala either. So why does the Mishnah say yigonzu? Why isn't it 100% mutter? Zok Gemara loy le'olam the ir acheres. It's speaking that it's in a different city. That's why it's in Yerushalayim. Vasku legava, and that actually is in Yerushalayim. And about this in Yerushalayim, it is considered shalala because in Yerushalayim it's not mammon gavaya according to the. So why is it that yigonzu? You can't take it back out of Yerushalayim because its walls were already koilet this product. It became tamei, and since it became tamei, that's why you have to bury it. So the Gemara is going to ask soon if it became tamei, it has nothing to do with ir nidachas. Any Ma'aser sheni that became tamei, you bury it. What else are you supposed to do with it? It has nothing to do with ir nidachas. But the Gemara puts that question aside for now. So you have Ma'aser sheni, Aben ir nidachas, that's currently located in Eretz Yisrael, You cannot take it out of there. So that's currently located in Yerushalayim. You cannot take it out of Yerushalayim and you bury it there. Frank Gemara of a why don't you be poided? The halacha is you can be poided Ma'aser Sheni. So be poided the Ma'aser Sheni. Domer Belazar, Minayin la Ma'aser Sheni shenitma shepoidin Isai. How do you know that if Ma'aser Sheni became tamei that you could be poided? Afilu b'Yerushalayim, because normally in Yerushalayim you cannot be poided anything because you're supposed to eat it there. How do you know a food item that you normally wouldn't be able to be poided? But if it's tamei and therefore you can't eat it, you are able to be poided even in Yerushalayim. Now, the pasuk says, when do you redeem Ma'aser Sheni? If you're far from Yerushalayim and you cannot carry the Ma'aser Sheni from wherever city you are into Yerushalayim, so you're poided. And the lashon of pasuk is like Sukkot says, so you can't carry it, you can't bring it to Yerushalayim. But we learn that Se'esei means achila. It says el achila shenemar v'yosei masas me'es panav. There, it's referring to meals. Is that talking about? Yeah, that's talking about where Yosef gave the brothers food. So you see, lashon masas is eating. So we learn that any time you have Ma'aser Sheni, even though it's in Yerushalayim, but you can't eat it. Why can't you eat it? Maybe because it's tamei. You're allowed to be poided. So the question there is, why do you bury it? Why can't you be poided? You know when you could be poida something that originally the Ma'aser Sheni itself. You had wheat and you made it into flour and you made it into dough and that becomes tamei, that you'd be able to be poida. But what happens if you've already been poida the Ma'aser Sheni and you brought cash to Yerushalayim and in Yerushalayim with the cash you bought dough, you bought Ma'aser Sheni? That's already double jeopardy. We don't let you be poida a second time. And therefore you cannot be poided. Why can't you be poided anyway? Because if it's tamei, you should be able to be poided, even though it's something that you already bought with money that you were already poided with. Anyway, it's not a lakuach b'kesef meiser, something you bought with kesef meiser. So you went and bought fruit with kesef meiser in Yerushalayim, and the fruit became tamei shenitpa. The lach is yivta, you could be poided. Zok Gemara, no, we're going according to Rabbi Yosy, who holds, I think, is it Rabbi Yosy or is it Rabbi Yehuda? I'm sorry? We're on top of Rabbi Yehuda. Oh, Rabbi Yehuda, it's going to Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Yikover, he holds you would bury it. As Rashi says, Umeshani Rabbi Yehuda, the Amar, Loi Alamu Mitvus Pejoinai. You cannot be pointed the second time around. Therefore, by whom on the Gufa? Therefore, V'haninami Ma'aser Sheni Dek Amar Yigav B'Kfur. Why do you bury it? It's because it's Ma'aser Sheni that became tamei, and it was already bought, so you can't be put a second time. So Frank Gemara now, who cares if these pears came from an irni dachas, and that's how you have to bury it, even if these pears were regular good pears, except that they were tamei, but they were already purchased with mice of irni dachas. The halach is you bury it. Afilu the almanami. It has nothing to do with an irni dachas. So therefore, we have to abort this teretz and try the original teretz. We're speaking with Ma'aser Sheni that's tahar, and it's from an irani dachas. So the Gemara's kasha was, why do you have to bury it? Why don't you say that the mechitzas of Yerushalayim were koiled, and therefore it cannot be destroyed? It's not included in the destruction of the property of the irani dachas, and therefore it should be mutter and kansen. The teretz is uchagoin the nafel mechitzais. It's speaking where the walls fell down. Zok Rashi, elul oilam b'ma'aser sheni the irani dachas tahar. It's the Ma'aser Sheni of irani dachas tahar. Vaskula gava. What happened is the Ma'aser Sheni was generated in a different city, and then it was brought up to Yerushalayim. And then it became an irani dachas. So the question is, do you take it back out? So what did we say until now? You can't take it back out because the mechitzas of Yerushalayim are koiled. So Zok Rashi the Amr lishteri b'achila. Dakal tom mechitza is achash nichnas l'chayim Yerushalayim. You had a kasha that the mechitzas are koiled, so it should be mutter. It shouldn't have to be destroyed. Uchagoyin the nafel mechitza is. It's been when the mechitzas fell down. So the walls of Yerushalayim fell down. Therefore, there's nothing to be koiled. This Ma'aser Sheni. And therefore we say Yiganzu. Uchadirava. And it would follow the halach of Rava. The Amar Rava Mechitza Lachal Dairaisa. To be able to eat Ma'aser Sheni in the city of Yerushalayim, that you need Dairaisa, you have to have walls. If not, you can't eat it. But the liklois, to say that you can't take it out, that's only midirabanan. Midirabanan, if there are mechitzos, you're not allowed to take the Meiser Sheni out of Yerushalayim. But over here, there are no mechitzos. So the chigazer abanan ki isnu lemechitza. When there's a wall, there we say it's koilet and you cannot take it out. But ki lesnu lemechitza. But if there's no wall, there is no such halacha. The Rabbanan never said that it's koilet. So it's speaking where you had Meiser Sheni from a different city. The different city became a nidachas, and this Meiser Sheni is now in Yerushalayim. The halacha is you're supposed to take it out of Yerushalayim, and you don't destroy it, you bury it, else covered. But it's subject to all the rules of the nidachas because there's no wall standing right now to be koilet this Meiser Sheni. So what the Achronim ask is, if this whole thing is Derabanan, if the whole concept that the Klita is only with Derabanan, so then even if the walls are still standing, Midaraisa, it's considered something of a Nir Nidachas. It should be destroyed. Just because Midarabanan not allowed to take it out, the Deraisa says you have to take it out. So that is one of the big kasha that's asked. What they answer is, the Rabbanan just changes the Metzias. The Pasuk says only something that you can get back to the Nir Nidachas gets destroyed. But if the Rabbanan put a barrier in front of it that you can't get it out, so then the Rabbanan changes the Metzias. The Metzias changed, now you can't get it out anymore, and therefore it wouldn't be considered part of the Ernida. Kisvei HaKodesh you go to. Kisvei HaKodesh you don't destroy, rather you bury. Masnizin Deloik Rebbe Lozer. Now they do ask, why is it that by Truma it says Yer Kavu, and we at the end we learned it's also Truma that would normally be destroyed, but it's covered for the Truma you let it rot. But by Meiser it's Yigonzu you bury it. Why is Truma and Meiser Sheni treated differently? So the Mepharshim tell us that Truma is on a higher level of Kedusha. So to bury it is like you're destroying it b'yadayim. So therefore you wait until it completely rots, and then and only then are you allowed to get rid of it. But Meiser Sheni you can destroy right away. Zok to Gemara. Masnizin Deloik Rabbi Lozer. The Tanya Rabbi Lozer Omer Kol Ir Sheyesh Ba. Afilu mezuzah achas ein nasas ir nidachas. If there's even one mezuzah in the entire city, it cannot become a Nir Nidachas. Shenemar, it says, the Sarafta Be'esh, Esa'ir, Ves Kol Shalola Kolo. But you cannot allow to burn the mezuzah. Ve'echa de Ika mezuzah lo yefshar. You cannot burn the mezuzah. The Chsiv lo Isasun Kain Lashem Aloikeichem. The Pasuk says, Kimis Matzei Veisim Tishaber, and there's a whole series of, there's a whole shtickle in Devorim that talks about that you have to destroy anything that belongs to the goy, to the Avodah Zarah, but don't do that to the Torah. Right? It says v'ibadatam hashemam. Rashi says v'ibadatam hashemam in hamakamu, and then right after it says l'sasam kein l'shem l'keichem. So you're not allowed to destroy a mezuzah. Therefore, you wouldn't burn it near nidachas. So v'ayitachos near nidachas is very unlikely. The whole city totally threw away mitzvahs. They don't even have mezuzahs anymore. Right? Everybody knows the famous story about a person who went to the Rov, and he told the Rov that I have to burn down my warehouse because I need an insurance claim. But the problem is what should I do with the mezuzahs that are in the warehouse? Right? If I leave them there, I'm going to burn the mezuzahs. How can I burn the mezuzahs? But if I take them off, then the investigators aren't stupid. They know I'm Jewish. They know Jewish people have mezuzahs. They'll see there were no mezuzahs. They'll already know that this is probably pre-planned and that it's ours. And I'll get into trouble. So the Rav says, that's a very good question. Let me think about it. He says, you know what? I'll tell you what you should do. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you checked your mezuzahs? I don't know, years ago. He says, what's the matter if you have to check your mezuzahs? Take them right off and check them. Now, if punkt while they're by the server being checked, the thing goes on fire, no, that's what happens. And that's what it says in the Mishnah in Pesachim. It says, Boitkin, the achekach sorfen. Zok to Gemara weiter. Zok to Gemara weiter. Reb Shimon Omer, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we have over here a machloikis. We have over here a machloikis in our Mishnah. Let me see if I can find it. Reb Shimon said, Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, Im atem oisen din be'erni dachas ma'ila ni alechem kilu atem ma'ilim oila kolo lefonai. And then this is v'hoisa tel oilam, you shouldn't make even Guinness or Pradesim. You have to totally destroy it, which is what the Yosy clearly said. And Rabbi Kiva said, you don't have to, you're allowed to do something with it, you're allowed to plant, you just can't build it to the way it was. So we have a machloikis about the Ir Nidachas. you have to leave it totally barren, or you're allowed to plant and do other things there. You just can't build it up to its original glory. So let's see what the Gemara says over here. Let's say this machlokes as to whether or not you could do something with the Erni Dachas is totally the machlokes Reb Avin and Reb Eloi. Reb Avin Reb Eloi. Kol mokem shata moitzi klal ba'asei. Now we know there's something called a klalu prat, where you learn ein bechlal el mashav prat. But what if there's a klal about a halacha when there's a mitzvah to say in reference to the halacha, uprat beloisase, and the prat is by a loisase. So then ein done in oisai bechlalu prat. You don't darshan it with a klalu prat. Let's see how this is relevant to our case of Yerni Dachas. Klal ba'asei uprat beloisase. It says in the pasuk "V'oisha tel olam." It says that like about Yerni Dachas. Tel olam is a klal. Don't do anything. It's a big generalization, but it's a mitzvah to say. Now, if you look gamesh upradisim loisasa, elo tia tel olam shuasei. So there's a mitzvah to say that it should be totally barren. Then the pasuk comes out with a loisasa. It says loisivana oid. You shouldn't rebuild it. So that's mashma binyan batim v'hi loisasa. So the klal is in the asay. The prat that limits the chiyuv to leave the Yerni Dachas barren is limited to binyan, to rebuilding it to the way it was. So that's why we have an asay and a loisasa. So the loch is ein done in oisai. Rabbi Eloi said ein done in oisai bichlalu prat. You don't treat it like a klalu prat. Loimar ein bichlal ela mashav prat. We won't say that the only thing that's forbidden is rebuilding it. The loisasa pirshu, because in a klal and a prat, the loisasa would be explaining the klal, which is much more general. Loimar voisa tel olam. When it says voisa tel olam, it needs explanation. Comes along the loisasa and says loisibana oid. Teaching us the binyan ka'amar, it's only talking about binyan. Only binyan is being prohibited. Of legamesh or pradeshim, it would be shari. You don't say that. Rather, elatrei mili kamar. You say the Torah is talking about two different things. The asay is one thing, and the loisas is a different thing. The loyamrina perusha kamafarish elamili ka'amar. It's just telling us two separate halachas. Voice teloilam is legalis or pradeshim, and loisivena oid is called binyanim shaboilam. Vafilu legalis or pradeshim loisivena oid. So that's the first prat of Rashi. The first prat of Rashi is that it's not a klalu prat, and both voice teloilam and loisibana is referring to any type of construction at all. There are those who learn that the asay would be not even to do kaddish pradeshim, and the loisasa would apply even to binyanim, but there won't be an asay for it. But let's learn it like the Rashi's first pshat, that you don't learn that it's a klalu prat, rather it's two different halachas, and therefore everything would be usher to build there. So let's have a look. The Mar is later Rabavin. Who owes like Rabavin? Who owes that it's not a klalu prat? The first one who says you can't even make it ganesh upradesim. Umar less later Rabavin, and the Mandamo holds that the only thing that's usher is rebuilding, but the Kiva, the only thing that's usher rebuilding, but you're allowed to plant in it. He would not hold a Rabavin. So maybe the chulu alma istul Rabavin. Let's say everybody holds a Rabavin and there is no klalu prat over here. So if there's no klalu prat here, then the pashas would be that you're not allowed to rebuild it at all. Sign not buildings and sign not ganesh upradesim. So what's the svar of the mandavar who holds that you are allowed to make ganesh upradesim? Mar sover oid legamer mashma. One mandavar holds when it says loisibana oid, it also means don't even make ganesh upradesim. We learn Pashas loisibana oid means don't build buildings. No, don't do anything. And that would be the Tanakama who says you're not allowed to do anything, even planting gardens. Umar sover oid is l'chama shahoisa. The loisibana oid is l'chama shahoisa. Therefore, you cannot build anything on it at all, and it's not a klal prat. It's still not a klal prat, but side the klal and side of prat says you can't build it up at all. Talk to Gemara weiter. Eina nivnis avalnasi ginis upedesh. Tanu Rabban. Hoyuba ilanois tolution. What if there were trees in the property that were not connected to the ground? Asur and they'll be usher that they're considered shlala. Mechubarin, if they were growing on the ground, mutarin, they would be mutar. Shal iracheres. What if there were trees from another city that were found in the Ernidachas? Bein Tlushin, bein Michubarin, Aser, regardless, it'll be Aser. Zok to Gemara, my iracheres. What does it mean from another iracheres? Or Mabchista, it's referring to your Yericho. The Ksiv, Vaisa, Ir, Cherem, Lashem. Zok Rashi. Lo Yericho al Shem iracheres. Shlo Yivne Yericho. You're not allowed to rebuild Yericho at all. I'm sorry, let's go back to Mechubarin Mutarin. The Tikvoitz Visaraft Amar Rachmana. Why, if it's Mechubarin, why don't you destroy it? It's still within the Ernidachas. Because it says Tikvoitz Visarasa. Mishene Mechusha L'Kvitza Usreifa, Yodazeh Shemechusar Tlisha Ukvitza Usreifa. Okay. So Zok to Gemara Viter. So where are we? So Iracheres is it doesn't if it's done from another city, so it should be mutter. 1 second, where are we up to? Yeah, the guy has a pikotin. He's watching someone's trees from another city. So the question is, why should it be usher? We learned that something from another city, if it's not from an Nidachas, just because it's currently found in the city, why should it be usher? Why should you destroy it? Amar Chisda, because the Ir Acheres is Yerichai. Yerichai has to be totally destroyed. When Yeshua took over Yerichai, right, he said it has to be destroyed, and he made a cherem on anybody who would rebuild it. So we're speaking about from an Ir Acheres, no matter what, they're going to be osir because there's a special issue on everything from Yerichai. What is the article saying? So why over here is the thing is also later on. So what does he answer? It's any city that goes on Cherem. Okay. So now the Gemara goes off on a tangent and analyzes the situation of Yerichai. So when Yeshua destroyed Yerichai, it says, "Vayashva Yeshua beisu leimer." Yeshua swore at that time, "Or ha'ish lifnei Hashem asher yokum ubana es ha'ir hazos es Yerichai." It's also to rebuild Yerichai, but b'choyroi. What's the lashon? I can't. Yisadena. When he builds the foundation to this city, his bechor will die. And when he completes the city, as he continues to build, violating Yeshua's shvuah, his last child will die. In other words, he will lose all his children in the process of rebuilding the city. Zok Gemara, Tani we learned, Lo Yerichai al Shem Ir Acheres, v'lo Ir Acheres al Shem Yerichai. What Yeshua was forbidding was you're not allowed to rebuild Yerichai even if you're going to rename it and call it New York. A, and B is you cannot build any other city anywhere and name it Yerichai. That's how serious Yeshua's shvu was. Dichsiv banach kil beisa eli. So this fellow went along and he built es Yerichai ba'aviram b'chara yasta. When he built the foundation, when he started the construction of the city, his son Aviram died. And in fact, at the end of construction, he lost his last child. Why he didn't come to the conclusion earlier that he should stop, I don't know. Let's see Rashi. Don't build up Yerichai and call it a different name. But don't build any other city and name it Yerichai. Shafilu ban ir acheres v'kari Yerichai. It's still also of Noisa. Shafilu shem Yerichai yimach la'olam. Yeshua wanted that the name Yerichai should be wiped out and forgotten forever. Uchsiv, and it says biyamav in his time ban achil es beis eli es Yerichai biyamav shalachav in the day of Achav the al sha'avar ala Allah kari le beis eli. Since he was over on the shvuah the Allah, therefore it's called beis. Okay, Gavaltik. Rashi says he didn't rebuild Yerichai itself. Lo Yerichai al Shem Yerichai Shakar lo Yerichai. So that's what happened. He built a different city and called it Yerichai. So Zok to Gemara. Tanya we learned. Ba'aviram b'chayrai Russia. His son Aviram, who's a Russia, he didn't wake up right away when he started building that his son died, because he was a Russia, so he didn't necessarily have to connect the dots that he was rebuilding Yericho. Besog of Tziroi, but as he's building, he's losing all his kids, and then when he's finishing off, he is seeing that he's losing his last child. He should have chapped already that it was because he rebuilt Yericho. Aviram v'sog of Mayavet. What are we referring to with Aviram and Sagav? As Rashi is the Kari Rishoyim, they refer to as Rishoyim. Aviram b'Chayei Rasha and Sagav Tzirei Rasha. The Dalet says it's Rasha. So what did they do wrong that we're referring to them in the Bryce as Rishoyim? Zakmar Hachikamar. Aviram b'Chayei Rasha Hayel. Let's look at the Vav, because here the Gersa was a little messed up over here. The Vav says Loy. It says Baviram B'chayrai Loy Hayalay Lomoid. He should not have known, he would not have known La'isa Rasha, for the Rasha who's rebuilding Yerichai, but Pesag of Tzeirai Hayalay La'isa Rasha Lomoid, that Rasha should have learned. So, in other words, we're not calling the children to Russia. We're calling the father who rebuilt a Russia. If we know that when he started building, he lost Aviram b'chayrai, it's pretty obvious that Tziroi is the younger son. So, why did the Torah have to speak out? Why did the Navi speak out that he finished building the doors with Sagav Tzirai's youngest? I would have thought that if the first child died when he created the foundation, so the pasuk could have just said over Sagav Mace, over Sagav he made the doors. You have arrived from here that it wasn't just those two kids. There were many kids along the way. The first child that died was Aviram, but as he continued and progressed in his construction, more and more children died until the last child, his youngest child, died when he was putting the doors up. Achav was a friend of this chil. So the friend of this chil who rebuilt the city, Achav was his friend. Okay. Also, Eliyahu lemishal b'shlomya beitamya. So Achav and Eliyahu, Achav the Rasha and Eliyahu were going together to be Menachem Oval on this chil who had just lost his last son. Yosy v'ka'amar. So this is what they said. Dilma kimelis Yeshua hachilot. Maybe your mistake is that you rebuilt the city and you named it Yericho, and maybe that was included in Yeshua's klala. That what? Lo Yericho al Shem Yeracheres, but Lo Yeracheres al Shem Yericho. Amalei Eliyahu said in. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is, and that's why he lost all his children. So he asked, I don't understand. He asked a very good kasha to Eliyahu. I don't understand. Amalei hashtu latvasa de Moshe loika makai. The klala of Moshe Rabbeinu was not fulfilled. Achav was up. There was so much avodah zarah going on, and nobody was dying. So Vahu Gavra, referring to himself, I'll call tell him. We learned that Achav put avodah zarah everywhere. The mazel miskadlai. And there's, even though on every row in the field there's avodah zarah, there's such a proliferation of avodah zarah, still it's raining so much that you can barely get to the avodah zarah because it's so muddy in these fields. So there's no sign of a klala. Litvasa the Yeshua Talmidei Mekaima. So the klala of Yeshua should be Mekuyim? How is that fair? So that's what Chil says. Even Moshe Rabbeinu's klalas were useless. So why is it that Yeshua's klalas took effect? Miyad vayomer Eliyahu Tishbi mitosh v'gilad Chai Hashem Elokei Yisrael Emiyah Talamoter. So Eliyahu got up and says there's not going to be rain because he had to sort of be moicha on the cover of the Shvuah of Moshe Rabbeinu that there should be no rain. So what did Eliyahu do? Boy Rachme, he asked for Rachmanis. They gave him the key, one of the three mafteichos that Hashem doesn't give out. Hashem gave Eliyahu the key of rain, and Eliyahu took that and he wouldn't release it. And he went and he left, and he wasn't going to allow any rain. So Eliyahu went and disappeared. He went away where no one could get him with the key to rain, so that there should be no rain in Klal Yisrael. And Eliyahu was brought food by ravens. Ravens brought him food. Where did the food come from? From Achav's kitchen. Achav was a king. He had plenty of food cooking over there. Every day the ravens would come and bring it for Eliyahu. So there's a whole bunch of shilas on it. Why isn't it Bashish in this Halman Ayin? Achav was a mummer. Could you trust the shechita? So there's a lot of discussion about it. But whatever the case is, Eliyahu got food while he was in this cave. He got it from the Orvim. Eventually the river dried out because Eliyahu didn't allow any rain. Once Eliyahu saw that there's sar because there's no rain, it says, Hashem told Eliyahu Navi, go to Tzarafas, ben ha'isha balas abayis. This child got very sick and he needed a refuah. Boy rachame, so he davened to the Rebbeinu Shalom, lamitin le'aklida det chisamesim. Since this child was very sick and Eliyahu wanted to help heal this child, he asked, he died already. He died already, and he wanted now the mafteich of chisamesim. So Hashem said, no, you can't have 2 out of 3 keys. We can't give away the three keys were in the Rebbeinu Shalom's hand. So actually, the Kamak Hakadosh Baruch Hu, I never gave him away. I always maintained full control of these 3 keys: the keys of children, the keys of Tchias HaMesim, and the keys of rain. You're the only one who ever got any key. And you, I gave 1 key, the key of rain. No, I can't give you this anymore. They're going to say that you have 2 and I only have 1. That I can't do. So he said, I'll make you a deal. Why is there a master key? I see I'll make you a deal. You give me the key to rain, and then I'll give you back. Then I'll trade with you, and I'll give you the key of Tchias HaMesim. Go to Achav, and I'm going to give rain. So once HaKadosh Baruch Hu took back the key of rain, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him rain. A person from the Galil dashed in front of Chisda. Mashal Eliyahu lemad davar toima legavra the tarka legale va'avde lemaftachei. Someone who locked the door and then lost the key. So kach as Eliyahu no l'shari motor ulebesoif avad hamaftech shel geshamim shel niftach hashar shel motor al yadai. Eventually, when the gates of rain opened up, it didn't get opened up through Eliyahu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu opened it up because Eliyahu wanted to swap his key out. Abba Eliyahu, I'm sorry. Abba Eliyahu, Rashi says, Chavivi Gedol, my good buddy Eliyahu. Captain Hava. Eliyahu, you're a captain. So who said this drasha? Rabbi Yosy from Sipur. Rabbi Yosy from Sipur said that Eliyahu was a captain. Havarogel, he was a guy who was makwid. He got nervous. He got angry at people for bothering them. Why? Because he got angry at Achav. When Achav said, how come Yeshua's Kalala worked and Moshe's Kalala didn't? So it got Eliyahu angry, and he caused that there should be no rain. So you see, in fact, that he was a captain. So look what happened. Havarogel Meisig Abei. Rabbi Yosy used to have Gila Eliyahu every day. He used to live with Eliyahu Navi. For 3 days, Eliyahu didn't come. So he's a captain. Kiyasa, when Eliyahu finally came back, Rabbi Yosy asked Eliyahu, why didn't you come for 3 days? What do you mean, Captain Karisali? You called me a captain, so that's why I didn't come for 3 days. I'll be like, how to come on? They can come with me. So you see, you're a captain. You see, I told you, I was upset. You don't come. So what, you're angry at me. I called you a captain. You've just demonstrated that you're a captain. Zok to Gemara. Yidbak. So the Mefarshim asked, why didn't he say you're a captain because of Achav, which is the original reason why I called him a captain? Because there he could have said, I wasn't a captain. I was being Moshe on the cover of Moshe. But the fact that Eliyahu didn't come to Rabbi Yosy, that's clearly that he was a captain in Rabbi Yosy. Yidbak biyotchem me'umum min achirim. The Mishnah tells us, calls man, Shirishon ba'olam, Charay naf ba'olam. Man Rishoim, who are Rishoim, Rabbi Yosef Ganvi. Ganovim is who we're referring to, which is very interesting because we're destroying here people who are Ovid Avodah Zorah. Tan Rabbanan, Rasha ba'olam, Charoin ba'olam. If Rasha comes to the world, it creates anger, Shnemar, Beva Rasha ba gambuz, v'am kohen cherpa. So I'm trying to see where do you see a lashon of Geneva? No, did you see a Russia? When a Russia comes, there's bad coming to the world. Russia Ovid min olam. If a Russia gets destroyed to the world, then Toiva b'olam brings good to the world. Shenemer abud rishoyim rina. Tzaddik nifta min olam. If a tzaddik leaves the world, Ra b'olam, that's bad for the world. Shenemer a tzaddik ovad vein ish som alev. A tzaddik is gone, and we don't know why. The anshe chesed nasofin be'ein mevin. And good people get together, trying to understand why we lost these tzaddikim. Ki mipnei hara nesaf a tzaddik. Tzaddik b'ala olam, tova b'ala olam. Shenemar, and that I'll have to leave you with suspense as to how we know that when a tzaddik b'ala olam, tova b'ala olam. So we'll save the scene. But Baruch Hashem, we were zoicha to finish Maseches Sanhedrin. Tomorrow, Hashem, I didn't think it would take this long. Tomorrow, Hashem, we'll start with Maseches Makkos. Wow, this is a Masechta. It's a Geshmak Masechta. Or are you going to the U.S. already?